I'm not saying.
All right, I'm glad you laughed. Come on, you like reality. That's why you laughed. That's why you and your husband like me. Because I'm one of the few people in the radio business who speaks exactly what he thinks. And whether you agree with me or not, you know I hit it out of the park just now. They're not all geniuses in the ghetto. And plenty of kids grow up in the ghetto who somehow rise up above it. You know that.
Right. No, Michael, that's not what I'm saying, though. But here's the point. You made two really important points. One, you made the point that you thought that this could be the beginning of nationalizing the police force and different, and you may have a point there. But here's the question. Always remember, and I want everybody to hear this, when they start, and this sounds off the cuff, but just give me a second to come back around to the point. When they started with abortion, when Margaret Sanger started that, it was to eliminate the lower strata, those who were not.
That's right. Planned Parenthood is a eugenics organization aimed mainly at blacks.
Exactly.
So we agree on that. All liberals who are Planned Parenthood are fundamentally Nazi eugenicists.
Exactly. So here's the thing, though. This is beginning, and let's just say everybody's saying, oh, he has to have done something wrong. Quite frankly, I have a son who's in college right now, and he's doing his best, but I might tell him, hey, if something seems suspicious, walk fast, regardless of who it is, because I don't know. He can't just trust everybody, even the police at this point, because he doesn't know if he's going to be unfairly characterized. Now, hold on a second.
I didn't say anything. If I were a black and had a black son, I'd tell him to get away from any trouble there was and not stick his nose in it.
Exactly. And here's the one thing.
But I would say that to a white kid as well. I told my own son, if you see trouble, stay away from it. Don't stick your nose in it. So it's not a racial thing.
It's not. It's really not. But here's the thing. You remember that famous poem, They Came After,
Yes, wait. When they came for the communists, I didn't raise my voice because I was not a communist. When they came for the trade unionists, I did not raise my voice because I was not a trade unionist. When they came for the gypsies, I did not raise my voice because I was not a gypsy. When they came for me, there was no one left. That's Cardinal Niemöller, who eventually was arrested by the Nazis and thrown in a concentration camp. So what are you getting at?
My point really quickly is, if this young man has done nothing, and this turns out to be...
Oh, you know what? Your point is too important to drop you. I need this woman to stay on the line.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. Savage.
Or have their own experiences of injustice at the hands of police officers.
Oh,
I urge you to channel the energy peacefully as we
boy.
prosecute this case. I have heard your calls for no justice, no peace.
Oh,
However,
boy.
your peace is sincerely needed.
All right, turn it off. So we know what she is. She's a rabble-rouser. She's aggressive. She's ambitious. She wants to run for state office, federal, or wants to be a senator or a congresswoman. In her mind, she's going to be president because of this. And it's a shame because there is a dead guy. Let's say he was a drug dealer who was running from the police. Let's take that side of it. And there was probable cause to arrest him. And he fought with the police. They threw him in the van. And whatever happened in the van, I don't know. The other guy in the van says he heard him banging his head on his own. It's point blank what he said. Then he says that he didn't do that. See, this guy Allen says, and they're trying to make it seem like I told him that. I made it like Freddie Gray did that to himself, Allen said. Why the F would he do that to himself? And this guy Allen was in the van because he allegedly stole a cigarette. You hear this? From a store on North Avenue. And he was never charged. Instead, he was brought straight to the station. Allen said, I talked to Homicide. I told Homicide the same story. Now he says his story is being distorted and he fears for his life. So Allen is saying there was no lurching in the van and that the guy was banging his head against the wall. You got to understand that there's a game being played by criminals in America right now. They know because of the ACLU. They know because of the rats at NYU, Columbia, Harvard, and all of the lowest forms of life, law schools in America. Because of the low-life communist scum lawyers in America, the criminals have been taught how to get around the system. And the first thing that the criminals do is they say, oh, I need medical attention. Oh, I have a heart condition. So the cop is allegedly having to take them immediately to a hospital for medical care. This is what the rats with big glasses and curly hair have told criminals how to do. You can thank all the boys at Harvard, NYU, Columbia, and the other low-life schools of law for having empowered the criminals in this country. So don't think this came out of the blue. This guy knew the game. He was playing the game. He said, take me to the doctor. They didn't, so therefore they're facing, I don't know what, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Why all of them? Why not just the driver? Tell me why. Now let's go back to Rochelle on WJR. Rochelle, please finish. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought what you were saying made sense. We were getting along. What would you like to say?
I just wanted to just finish up with, like, to my knowledge, this young man didn't have any record. Now, usually they'll come out pretty quickly.
Wait. No, you're wrong about that. He has a long rap sheet.
Okay.
You mean Freddie Gray?
Yeah, Freddie Gray.
Oh, no, he has a rap sheet that's as long as my arm, as I said at the beginning. It looks to me like with all of his possession of drugs, etc., he was a drug dealer.
Okay, so hopefully,
He was a low-grade street dealer. He was not a big dealer. In other words, he wasn't on the city council. He wasn't a congressman. Okay. He was actually one of the salesmen in the street.
Right. Okay, so here's the thing, though. Regardless, the death of him, okay, and the way they handled this situation, my concern is, if in fact you are correct about them wanting to federalize the police force and do all these things, understand that what starts on a low level that gets where people get away with certain things goes and eventually infects the entire society. And what my concern is that the death of this young man was wrong, regardless of what he did on this earth. His death was wrong, and it's being tried in the courts, right? But if we just keep turning away from that and saying, well, he was a criminal anyway.
No, I never said that. I said, even though he was a low-grade drug dealer, he still died in custody. So that is a case. I said right off the bat, it seems to me like a case. But I would think the driver of the truck would be the only one who's culpable here, not everyone else.
But my question, though, is if everybody should be held accountable for not at least calling and saying, hey, something's wrong with our prisoner, our driver.
Well, wait, it's not everybody. Do you know that the cops who arrested him were bicycle cops? Do you know that?
Yeah.
I mean, they're just bicycle cops. They're not like big thuggish, dangerous beating type. I mean, what do you mean everyone should? Why is she dragging everyone into this?
Because you don't even have to be a police officer to know that someone is injured. And at least, like, if he had to have blood coming from his head at one of those stops, if he had a nail go through his head, I mean, something had to alert someone that something was wrong.
Yeah, but the arresting police were not in the van at that time, were they?
Yeah, I think I think they were.
No, they weren't. All 6 of them were not sitting in the van watching him bleed to death. They arrested him, and they put him in the van, and then they weren't there. She dragged them in because she's politically ambitious, in plain English, Rochelle. You have to understand that there are no innocent people here.
Okay.
You know that she's a political appointee. You know that she is a personal friend of the attorney for the guy who died, Bill Murphy. You know that Bill Murphy, the attorney for the deceased, gave her campaign donations when she ran for prosecutor. You know that Bill Murphy, the lawyer for the deceased, was even on her transition team after her election. I'll bet you didn't know any of that.
But however you slice it, and here's my main point, I want the entire nation to be aware of this. Just because something happens, and it happens in the communities that seem like they're always in trouble, which living here, you'd have a different perspective, but I'm not even going to go into that. That's a whole nother story for another day.
So what's your main point? Everyone in the police department, why not indict the whole police department?
No, my main point is that we all better be aware that if...
Well, why don't you, Rochelle, would you like the Crips and Bloods to be the police in your neighborhood? You said you live in the ghetto. Would you like them to be the cops?
No, but this is not my point, because I have...
And if someone broke into your house, you're an educated woman, you have a family, you live in the hood, you're trying to make a life for your family. If someone breaks into your house to hurt you, you call 911. Who would you like to have show up? One of those with the pants hanging under his behind, with a bandana on his head, or a cop?
Listen, I am not anti-officer at all. In fact, I service them daily at my job. So that is not even a question.
Wait, please. This is a family show, Rochelle.
No, you know what I mean. But
I'm sorry. Look, I can't help it making a joke every once in a while. I think your main point is this, and tell me if I'm characterizing this correctly. You're saying just because he was a drug dealer, a low-grade drug dealer, just because he's in a troubled neighborhood, just because he's a nobody, just because he has no connections, doesn't mean he doesn't have human rights. Isn't that what you're saying?
Absolutely, and I'm afraid that it's going to get on. When it happens in the suburbs, it'll get attention. And this is where I'm going with this. Let's just really look at this. If this is because...
You're saying that's why you brought up Cardinal Niemöller, which is that because no one came to the aid of Freddie Gray, it could happen to anyone else. They could be arrested, let's say, in a lily white suburb of Michigan, and let's say it's a domestic dispute, and the husband's a little drunk, and they throw him into a van. You say the same thing could happen to him. Isn't that what you're saying?
I'm saying that, and when they call the National Guard out, listen, you no longer have any rights. And this can happen to anybody.
Well, you're jumping from one point to the other now. I think you made a very good point, and I want to thank you for staying with us on this. I'm going to send you a free copy of my forthcoming novel, Countdown to Mecca. The time right now in the Savage Nation is 42 minutes after the hour. You know what happened. It's impossible to become an officer today in America unless you, I don't know who would become a cop today. I have no idea why anybody would do this anymore. I don't know how you can do your job. I don't. I have no idea how this is going to play out other than you're going to get a certain stratum of society becoming police who are on the wrong side of the law. And that's going to be to the detriment of the entire nation. Now, when all of this started, the other day, I played for you audio tapes of Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Eric Holder. Do you remember? Do you remember the speeches they have been giving for the last 6 years attacking the police? Do you remember that? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? They've been laying the groundwork for this day for a very long period of time. This is not to say that what happened to him was planned. I didn't say that. But they're the ones who laid the groundwork to federalize the police. And I've been saying this to you for several years. It's in my previous book, Stop the Coming Civil War. I saw all of this. And the fact of the matter is they also want to disarm the police, as in England, so that only the criminals will have guns. And you have a low-life street rat like Al Sharpton, one of the worst people in the history of America. One of the worst. If you go back to George Washington, you could never see anyone on the order of an Al Sharpton, a demagogue, a race baiter, a hater, a liar, a tax evader, in my opinion. Now he wants the federal government to take over the police. Listen to the evil Sharpton. By the way, again, I'll say it. No one else in the business dare say it. Why do you dignify this man by calling him Reverend? I killed myself to get a PhD, and I am Dr. Savage. I earned it from a great university after 2 master's degrees. So far as I know, he got his Reverend's degree in a Cracker Jack box in Brooklyn. Listen.
We need the Justice Department to step in and take over policing in this country. In the 20th century, they had to fight states' rights and to get the right to vote. We're going to have to fight states' rights in terms of closing down police cases. Police must be held accountable. I don't think all police are bad. I don't even think most.
I think that Al Sharpton should be held accountable. I think the state attorney general in New York, who is not a good person, should have arrested him a long time ago for the crimes he's committed. I'll give you one example. Listen to who you're listening to. Al Sharpton, the man who, with Tawana Brawley, made up a case about Tawana Brawley. Remember that? Remember Tawana Brawley accused Detective Pagonis of smearing her with feces and raping her? And Al Sharpton was out in the street with her with a bullhorn? That is who your president has in and out of the White House? Let me put it in context for you. Make believe a super conservative person had won the presidency, and he's now in his second term. And in and out of the White House comes the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan on a regular basis. Do you think all those smart boys and girls in the media might have noticed somebody in white sheets going in and out of the White House? Well, that is the equivalent of Al Sharpton going in and out of the White House on the other side of the aisle. That's my position. That's how I see this. It does not mean, and I want to go back to my main point, it does not mean that this man should have died in custody. He did die in custody. Did he do it to himself? I don't know. The other prisoner said, the other guy in the van said he seemed to be banging his head against the wall himself. How are you ever going to prove that? Maybe the guy knew the racket. Let's take the other side of it. Maybe Freddie Gray knew the game, and if he beat himself up a little in the van, he could then make them stop and take him to a hospital. You understand? And get a nice juicy case out of it. Why, that's not possible? We never heard of that? Of people screaming police brutality every time they go near them? You think they don't know the game because of your friends with a law degree, the lowest scum on the earth? These lawyers who constantly